This is the show where you'll hear paranormal tales, haunting legends, and spiritual insights about the metaphysical world. Explore the paranormal through small-town lore, not as seen on TV. Welcome to Small Town Tales Podcast with C.L. Thomas.
Welcome to this episode of Small Town Tales Podcast. I'm your host, C.L. Thomas. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to me during your busy holiday preparations. I know there's a lot going on right now. All of my friends are super busy trying to prepare for Christmas this year, and I think I'm the only one that does not have a Christmas tree. I did not want to put up my Christmas tree because I did not want to fight with my cat Loki for a month. For those of you who know me know that my cat absolutely destroyed my Christmas tree last year. It was awful. So he knocked it down just about every day. It was a constant battle. Every ornament I had on the tree was broken. And yeah, just not doing it. So this year I have the little Charlie Brown tabletop little pine tree that I plan to plant in the backyard once Christmas is done. But hey, that's how it goes when you have a cat, right? So this episode of Small Town Tales, I'm changing things up just a little bit. I have two guests on, and I'll tell you about those in just a minute. I did want to let you know that there is some changes coming for Small Town Tales podcast. That said, I'm not gonna let too much out of the bag. I have a lot going on for 2023. I do plan on putting a lot more podcasts out this year. There's just so many guests and so many interesting people to interview on so many paranormal topics that I really want to change things up. So that said, stay tuned because there's going to be a lot more stuff going on with this podcast. I'm going to bring in spiritual healers. I'm going to do a lot more mediumship through the program. Just a lot of changes. So for this one moving forward, I do have two special guests. One of them is actually a tour guide for one of the most haunted forests in the world, and that is Hoia Forest. And the other guest that I have later on tonight is it's a husband and wife team, ghost hunter team called Beyond the Veil Investigations. I've been trying to have these guys on my show for a really long time, and we were not able to make our schedules work. So I finally got them. They will be on later on this hour. I think this podcast is going to be about an hour and 20 minutes long. So stay tuned. They're going to be the last interview on here. For those of you who follow me on social media, you know that I took a life-changing trip to Romania this year with Maria Schmidt and her gang at Mysterious Adventure Tours. I got the chance to meet Maria on this trip, and she does a phenomenal job at putting together these tours. She's got a lengthy list of trips for 2023 lined up. I highly recommend taking any of these tours, particularly the trips to places you would never consider traveling to, such as Egypt, Prague, or Romania. I know she's got 2 trips to Romania in 2023. Highly recommend taking those. I mean, yeah, she's got trips to England and New Orleans and Savannah and a lot of other great places, but I'm just saying, personally, you can go to Savannah anytime. England is always there. It's, just a plane ride. It's easy to go to. Some of these other places, though, like Egypt and Romania, would you ever consider booking that yourself? Chances are pretty high that no. So highly recommend some of these other trips that, you're just not going to be able to do any other time. So I say this trip was life-changing for me for several reasons. I had so many paranormal and personal experiences while on this trip. So much that I just came back not the same person. It's really hard to describe it, but it's what happened. This whole trip kind of made me view life a little bit differently, but I think when you travel, that does happen, right? Corvin Castle was one of the places we got to investigate while on this trip. I got to experience some of the prolific spirit connections in this castle. We investigated this castle after it closed to the public, and we had a seance, among some other paranormal experiences. And one of the things I wanted to try out is that I have this theory on EVPs. One of them is we only seem to catch EVPs from the Victorian age. Before the Victorian age, though, when you look at linguistics, there's a lot going on, right? So if you were to speak to somebody who spoke English from, say, 1680, particularly from the northeast coast, I'm just going to say you probably wouldn't really understand them. You think about, for instance, the Scottish linguistics. It's very hard if you don't know their culture, if you don't know the language. It is English, you're right, but it's different. It's very hard to understand, especially hearing it for the first time. So my point is, I wonder how much of a language barrier there is involved with EVPs, and I really got to test that theory at Corvin Castle. So we did have a translator there. He speaks fluent Romanian. He was our tour guide, and he was able to, first we tried it in English, right? We tried to get a bunch of responses and try to connect through English, modern day English, that is. This place is from the Middle Ages, keep that in mind. Even if they did speak English, they spoke Old English, which means there's no way you would understand it. That language is so different. There's no way you would understand it. So, that said, I'm wondering if this is why we only catch EVPs from the Victorian period, because the linguistics would have been a lot more understandable. You would recognize it better, right? So, Corvin Castle, we've asked the questions in German because there was World War II that happened. We've asked the questions in Romanian, and we asked them in English. Surprisingly, we did not get a lot of responses in English, just what I thought. But when we started asking the questions in Romanian, we've got a lot of EVPs. To take it a step further, we got German responses. There's a couple other languages that I have responses for. I'm not 100% sure what language it is. My guess it's Bulgarian. It's what it sounds like. But I haven't so far found anybody to be able to translate the EVPs that I have recorded. I do plan on releasing these later on this weekend. I know you don't know what weekend this is. It's first week of December. But yeah, I'm wondering if the EVP situation, if there really is a language barrier. And I know the theory is that people think that spirits can converse in any language, right? They are all knowing somehow. Kind of like when you think about Christianity, the angels and God and Jesus, they're all supposed to be everywhere at one time, supposed to be able to understand spirit. I think with human spirits, though, that may not be the case. And it was just exciting to be able to test that theory and actually get some actual responses that goes against that theory, or that actually supports that theory. So it was really cool. When I was in Corvin Castle, I picked up on a lot of different spirits from different time periods. It was very confusing. It was just a really great experience. I did get to connect with a spirit there one-on-one. It was a male spirit, very, very angry male spirit, mind you. Just a really different experience. I've actually carried a lot of it home with me. And yes, it was really difficult to let that go for whatever reason. I have a really good connection with Corvin Castle. Other things we did on this trip is we had a seance in house where Vlad the Impaler was born in Transylvania. And this town is so gorgeous. Again, everyone at the table had some experiences in this house and in this town in general. It was just a great time. But for me, one of my favorite places to investigate from this trip was the Hoia Forest. The Hoia Forest, I don't know, just so much happened there. It's supposed to be the most haunted woods in the world and is considered the Bermuda Triangle of Europe. So, my guest tonight, who wishes to remain anonymous, it was kind of hard to get him to talk to me. And even then, I have some rules. I'm not allowed to say his real name. We're not allowed to talk about his personal experiences with Hoia Forest. Sometimes when you have such a profound experience that just completely changes you on such a deep level, particularly spiritually, which is what I think happened with Alex, you can't. It's really, some people just don't want to share that, right? He does have a lot of experience with Hoia Forest, and he's going to tell us about it. But before we get into this, let me welcome our guest to the show. Alex, welcome to Small Town Tales Podcast. Thank you for taking the time to speak to us about these woods.
Hello, thank you as well. I also want to talk with you.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved with Hoia Forest.
Well, what should I say? I first learned about Hoia Baciu Forest when I came to Cluj-Napoca when I was a student, and I was taken there, if I can say so, by a friend of mine who was into this. He believed in lots of paranormal stuff. At that moment, I didn't believe in anything. I guess I don't know. So not many people knew about the forest at that moment, and I was just curious about the stories. So I went there to check it out to see what's going on there, and we started to do like monthly trips to the forest, I think.
So this forest sits right in the middle of Cluj.
At the margin of the city, not quite in the middle, but it's very, very close.
So what's significant about this place?
Well, the strangest thing is that the circle, the round clearing, the circle in the forest where the trees don't grow, and I don't know, people are talking about lots of these unusual happenings in the area, in or around the forest.
And it has a lot of legends to it, correct?
Yes, there are lots of stories about it. But Romanian folklore is also full with stories and legends. But somehow this place is way beyond Romanian folklore. It goes a lot into other
paranormal incidents.
Yes, exactly.
We'll get into all of that in just a minute. I know we're not to discuss anything personal with you, but just in a yes or no question, are you able to say that this forest changed your belief in the paranormal?
Yes, I can confess that I like to call them coincidences, but I started experience lots of coincidences since I'm going to that place. Yes.
So this place, I'm not sure if the Ghost Adventures been here or not. It seems like I remember they may have been,
Yeah,
but they did?
Yeah, but not with me.
Not with you. So this place it's a really thick, dense forest. And when I was there, it was at night, of course. The fog was so thick, you couldn't really see maybe 2 feet in front of you, if that's fair. And as we made our way up into this clearing, there's a clearing right in the center of this forest where truly nothing grows except for maybe 2 inches of grass.
Yes.
The tree surrounding this, though, is bent in such a way it looks like harps or something.
Yes, there are many weird growing trees in the area, not just around the clearing, but also deeper in the forest. I don't know, from trees that spiral around themselves to trees that just grow towards the ground and then grow up. I mean, I can tell you that I've been there with some specialists in forests and trees, and most of them confirmed that they haven't seen something like that ever.
So these trees aren't really they're not biologically supposed to grow in the shapes of harps and some of the strange things we've seen.
No, sometimes, I mean, yes, they can grow like that in specific conditions, But the thing is, those conditions are not met in this place. So they are growing like that because of something else. Usually people would blame wind or the thickness of the soil or something like that, but uh, we don't find that in Hoia Baciu Forest. And there is not an area where all the trees are weird. They are spread here and there everywhere.
Mm-hmm. So within that clearing itself, has there ever been any biological research done on the soil itself that you know of that causes things not to grow in this area?
Well, I know that Mr. Adrian Petruț is a professor of chemistry in Cluj-Napoca, and he studied the forest like I think it started sometime in the 70s. I'm not sure, but at least 30 or 40 years. And yeah, he did some research regarding chemicals there, and he published them. But unfortunately, I cannot read them. There are lots of data. The conclusion is that he could not explain why the trees, at least using his experiments, he could not explain why the trees are not growing in that area and why is that circle there.
That's really interesting. So what is some of the general history of this place?
Well,
Kind of a long-ended question.
yeah, it can go very far away in Romanian folklore because we have here in Romania we have spirits that um, they affect nature. I mean, we call them yele. They are female spirits. Usually, they protect nature and wilderness, but when they meet in secluded areas and do rituals, while the locals believe that in the area where they do this ritual, the vegetation does not grow for at least 5 years. So probably, I don't know, many years ago, people believe that exactly in this clearing, the spirits are gathering our yele.
We saw that firsthand when we were out there. You showed us a bonfire pit, right?
Yes, but this is are man-made because more recently it's people that are coming there. Now it can be for rituals, but sometimes it's just having a barbecue. Depends. Uh, Actually, from what I know, there are not so many people just having a barbecue there. Most of them usually either they wait for something to happen around the fire or they use the fire in the ritual thing, like for purification or something.
Hmm. So what are some of the legends surrounding this forest?
Well, legends. There are a few legends that I don't believe in, and I like to rule them out, to put them aside. No, so any story about people disappearing here, I don't think that's it's reality. I don't know, but I've been there for since I'm walking there since 2005, and I don't think I disappeared ever. So I
No,
don't
you're
know.
still here.
Yes. Okay, if this is the dimension where originally I was born, yes. So yeah, I don't think that any shepherd ever disappeared there or any girl, because there are some stories about a girl that disappeared in the forest and she came back 5 years later. I don't think these are. Um, I mean, they might be real stories, but they are not linked to this forest. I think they came from somewhere else. I think they're like urban legends that just were brought to the forest because of the notoriety of the place.
So our listeners may not know the legend with the shepherd and the disappearing sheep. Can you relay that real quick?
Uh, yeah, well, it's just this information that there was a shepherd that disappeared with his entire flock of sheeps. Now depends. My variation, I like a different story here, like a makes it more of a legend. Is that actually not all of them disappeared, but just the sheeps disappeared at first. And yeah, the thing is that a shepherd lost his sheep and he couldn't find them anymore. And the problem was that it was the night of the Yele when this happened. So he recovered his life. Like, he bought other ships, and he had a he continued to have ships around the forest. But then after 3 years, he saw these ships coming out of the forest again. And when he went to check out to see what was going on with those, he saw that all these ships had these faces of women. And usually these yellow spirits, they like to shapeshift into something and preserve some part of a human body, and most of the time is the face. So after this event, the shepherd was convinced that the area is visited by the spirits, so he went there to the city to tell everyone, but everybody mocked him, and he was, I mean, he he was marginalized, and then he disappeared. But I think he just went away, like, not disappearing. He just, because nobody believed him, he just
Right.
went away.
So you
So
just went hiding.
yeah, that would be my version of the story.
Are there other things that happen in this forest that are legend?
Well, legends, I don't know, but from my experience, I can tell you that uh, there are some interesting coincidences, like people that truly believe into something and they come in the area, they start to experience what they have it on their mind. So if you read too many horror stories on internet about this place and you come to the forest, you'll probably get scared. Uh, but if you come like with a peaceful mind and positive vibes, then it's a beautiful place. Now, what can I say? No one ever was disappointed. Like, whoever believed in ghosts, they started to. I mean, I actually have some pictures that people took during their visits in the forest, where looks like a real authentic ghost. Other people that, I don't know, they were into orbs of energy. They started to get these things in their pictures. People that believe into, I don't know, like spirits or something similar, they are feeling their presence. I personally try to stay away from all of this because I don't want to go in one side. So I tend to be neutral when it comes to this. I present the place as it is, and then I let the visitor just have his own experience. That's one of the reasons why I only do private tours. I never go with mixed groups, because the visitor is really important.
Right.
His mind is being I don't know if I'm talking right, but it feels like the place reads your mind and then gives you back, amplifies whatever you truly believe in, and then gives it back to you.
That's really interesting. So, if you are haunted by something in your life, you
It
could.
will show up. Yeah. Actually, yeah, that's one of the stories that I like to point out in my tours. Yes, there were these cases when people, they were having spirits with them, like attached to them or following them, and they just appeared in pictures there in the forest. But they promised me they are not gonna stay, because would probably not go there if that place would be like, uh, I don't know, horrible. To me, it's not horrible.
It's actually a really pretty place. From what I've only got to see it at nighttime and in heavy fog. But from what I saw, it looks like a really gorgeous, peaceful place for the most part.
Yes, but depends the peaceful part. Most depends of the visitor. Yeah, depends what they are in, what they have it on their mind.
Right. So, some of the locals around there, how do they perceive this place? Are people typically afraid of it? Are they mindful of what happens there?
Well, some yes, some no. Like every, it's usually, I don't know. Some people, Romania has, and Romanians, they have a very strong culture into these spirits, and I, I can say a little bit paranormal or superstitious, depends how you take it. So we grow up believing in very interesting stuff. So yes, if now depends if you go like in like a more scientific school, then you might, I don't know, change your mind when it comes to beliefs like this into paranormal. But then others, uh, they still believe in this stuff. So some people are scared. Some people are not scared, but what can I say? They come there to charge themselves, like to uh, they respect it as a temple, if I can say so. They feel like they are in a temple. Others are just scared and they think that they are like the strigoi or the something bad or evil there. And others, they just think it's just a normal forest.
So, what are some of the spirits that are known for the Romanians? You've mentioned two different kinds.
Yes, the yell and the strigoi, yes.
Yes.
Uh, the strigo usually is a cursed spirit that cannot move into the afterlife. I must say, Romanians, we don't have ghosts, except for this strigoi. We don't have ghosts. The spirit is, because people are usually Christian Orthodox.
Mm-hmm.
After death, the spirit moves on. It's a must. They must go to God and then be judged and go to heaven or hell. This is the main belief of of all the people. But if I mean, the path can be interrupted because of this curse, and then this spirit cannot move in the afterlife, and it stays here on Earth, and well, it harms not by will necessarily. It needs to take energy from living people, so it does that. And after a very interesting ritual, I don't know if you heard about. Actually, you know how you kill the vampire? You stab it in the heart with a wooden stick.
Yes.
Well, that is an actual ritual that I'm not sure if it's still happening, but it happened sometime in 2005. It was the last time I heard about it. It was all over the news. That's how you break this curse of the strigoi. The family members, they have to find the person that was cursed. It's usually a person that has after they dig up graves and they look for more clues like longer fingernails, longer teeth, longer hair. So if they see a corpse like that in the graveyard, they have to stab it in the heart with a wooden stick in order to break the curse, and the spirit should move on to God. But sometimes the spirit choose not to move on, and they usually go to forests after that. And they are bad spirits because they're not following the normal path. So this would be in every forest in Romania. This spirit that refuses to move on after the curse is broken.
So, does this mean that the Romanians are fearful in a way to enter the woods at night?
Yes, if you, especially in the countryside, most of the people will tell you not to go in a forest after dark. And if you happen to be in a forest, get out. Like that should be your first thing. It's dark, get out. Go back home. Don't stay.
So, it's interesting you talked about the vampires. So, there is a little bit of element of truth. There's a whole vampire
Um,
legend.
I think if you ask Romanians about vampires, we don't have like a blood-sucking creature or entity here. But some of the things or the traits of the vampires you can find in this strigoi. Yes, in part, some of them are true beliefs.
That's really
But they
interesting.
but they would rather take energy, not blood, from people.
So, it's more of an energy psychic vampire.
You can call it an energetic vampire, yeah, that's for sure, but not blood thing.
One of the things that hit me in this forest when we were walking around at night, it was very cold, by the way. I think it was like 40 degrees that night, something around that.
Yeah.
But there was this dream catcher hanging out of one of the trees, and it had such an eerie feel to it. It was beautiful but eerie, both at the same time. Who put
Yeah,
that there, and what was the purpose of that?
Well, from I met there. I met there in the clearing actually a shaman woman, and she did her apprentice some with the shaman from United States actually. And I think it was her, but I didn't saw her. But there are people. Let's say in general, there are people coming to the forest, and they do these rituals. In this case, they like to create altars to thank Mother Nature and maybe ask for protection from Mother Nature. And they part of these altars that they are building could be this dream catcher. Dream catchers are not Romanian, that's
Right.
for sure.
I think that's why it caught me off guard, because that's a very Native American
Exactly. So
thing.
it's not from our side, but the people are coming from all over the world in this forest, and they have their own specific way of interacting with it, and like specific rituals. People do different stuff. They usually, I don't know, they usually ask for protection, or they need help, or they want to amplify their own sensitivities or powers, if I can say so. Something like that.
Does that do anything? Like, does that bring more energy into that forest so that it becomes kind of like a collective melting pot of different paranormal energies?
I'm not sure. One time I talked with Mr. Adrian Petruz, and he said that people that are visiting, they are taking part of the energy. But I don't agree with that, because, well, when I started doing tours there, out of nowhere came this notoriety of the place, because we didn't do much. We didn't have like a nice marketing strategy or something. So I feel like I have a contract with the place. I don't know. Whatever is there, I'm working for something.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, so I don't know. I talk with the forest. I have to agree. So I'm not sure what's there. I don't try to. I mean, it for me it works as it is. So I don't go too much into. But I talk with the forest. Let's say forest, whatever is there. I call it forest, and seems like stuff are happening to attract more people. So it looks like some people, they hear this calling, and they're just coming there. So maybe it's an exchange of energy. Maybe they leave some of the energy. Maybe it's gathering. I don't know.
Is it kind of a situation where the spirit tends to manifest or gain energy somehow from people going there? Do you think that's a possibility?
I didn't understand right the question.
Let me try to
Language
rephrase.
barrier.
Do you think that the energy in the forest grows stronger the more people visit?
It might be stronger. That's because I don't know how to measure it. I cannot measure the energy in the force. So not sure if it grows stronger. What I can tell you is that it wants more people to come for some reason. Like, it's not disappearing. Whatever is there is not disappearing because of the visits of people, like Mr. Adrian Patrut said. People that are coming, they are experiencing at again, I cannot say if it's the same intensity, because some people are more sensitive in one direction than others, so they have a more intensive experience than others. The problem is I cannot measure it.
Got it. So there are some reports about UFO phenomena, not just spirits, but also UFO phenomena in the past. Can you talk about that a little bit and what people have claimed to have seen?
Yeah, actually, Hoia Baciu Forest became really famous in the 70s because of an event that happened there in 1968. It was a UFO that was hovering above the forest, and there were these three pictures made of that object. At the moment, Romania was in communism, so people were pretty. I mean, the UFO phenomena was not strong in Romania at the time, so very few people knew about UFOs, and most of the people were scared, I think, to because they didn't know what it is. Like, it could be in communism, it was very hard to. I mean, there there was a problem if you would find out stuff that people were not supposed to find out about them, then you would feel in danger. Like if the government wanted to hide something and you would find about that thing, you would be afraid. So people didn't really want to touch subjects that they were not supposed to approach at the time. So yeah, Emil Barnia, I think he was scared. He made these pictures. He saw the object, and I think he was scared because he didn't show them to the world. It was Florin Gheorghiță, a friend of him, who was into UFOs. He somehow managed to take this picture in West Europe, and they were presented at some point. They were presented at a UFO conference in the 70s, mid 70s, and they were considered one of the best picture of a UFO at that moment, along with another one from Santa Ana, California, that was in 1965. That one, but yeah, when it comes to the paranormal stuff, it's any paranormal thing that you can know of. I think there is someone that experienced something in that forest. That is one thing that I find very strange because it's UFOs, it's spirits, it's energies, it's, I don't know, gates into other dimensions. People are talking about lots of things, so I was like, why? Like, why all of them? Why here? Because it doesn't seem to be like an important place on Earth, but who knows? I don't know if it is or if it's not. So yeah, I'm thinking that maybe it's just materializing stuff. Whatever is there is materializing what people believe in, but your true beliefs. Because I tried winning at lottery. It's not working.
And it's not working.
No, because I don't believe it. I'm gonna win. So yeah.
Are there any spirit creatures that exist, like cryptoids, such as werewolves or Bigfoot or elementals or anything? Any reports of those in that forest?
Uh, Now it depends with who you're talking. Some people, but not from what I know. I know there about werewolves. It's that caught my attention because we we have in our folklore, it was the Dacian, the population that live in the Carpathian area before the Roman Empire conquered the area and before Romanian culture was born. Now these people they believed in some deity called Zamolxis who would shapeshift into a wolf. And also their war flag is very related to a wolf. So there is a strong connection with shapeshifters into wolves, not necessarily werewolves as Hollywood presented them, like a person that cannot control himself and transforms at full moon. No, it's more like a religious event when people shapeshift.
That's interesting.
But that's more about history and Dacians. What can I say about something else? I know some people that I've been with, they sensed like fairies, I think.
I was just
Something
going
like
to ask you about that because that's such a popular phenomenon all through Europe.
yeah.
So do you guys have elementals and fairies and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I've been around with people that felt such presence. I personally, like I say, I like to stay away from this because I'm not want to go only on one side and then I miss the other. I like to stay neutral because I'm okay. If I'm neutral, I'm okay. It seems like okay. I work fine with the with the forest.
So how do you see your future with this forest? Do you think you're going to continue with tours and
I don't know. At some point, I don't know. This is interesting. I had an interesting moment with the forest when I wanted to quit. It's because there were these people that demanded to see an alien, and I
oh,
find it,
Lord.
yeah, I find it like what? And as the forest, I was like, if you don't give me an alien, I quit. I want something that resembles an alien or something. And yeah, I don't know exactly on the day when I was doing my walk, talking with the forest about this. I found this tree that has a face, and it's similar to. I mean, it resembles a creature like Groot, for example, if you know Groot.
Yes.
So yeah, this coincidence kind of kept me doing it, and I was like, okay, I got it. I'm gonna do it. So I don't know. I'm not sure. I'll just go with the flow and see what happens. I, yeah.
What are your theories about what has taken place in this forest? So you feel like you have a bargain, like you're doing a job for this forest.
Yeah.
What do you think is actually, what's your theory on what's actually going on with this? Do you think is it to better people? Do you think it's to make people spiritually better in some sense? Do you think
I,
there's a curse there? Do you think it's all above?
Now I don't think it's bad. So whatever is going on, I don't think it's something bad or like curse or something like that. I don't know. At least for me, it kind of convinced me that I don't know I can do. I don't know. I'm not sure. Like, hmm, I don't know. It's difficult to answer this question, actually.
How many visitors come to this forest every year, would you say?
A lot. I can say a lot. Not all with me. Uh, I think I go with just a small amount of these groups, but when I go there, like in the summer mostly, and let's say I stay for around half an hour in the clearing, I see at least 3 or 4 groups passing by, coming. Some people just asking for the trees because it's usually there. I mean, that's
Mm.
something palpable that you can see, something there, physical. I mean, but yeah, I think many. I think it's and there are more
Are they
every
all
year.
looking for the paranormal, or some just looking at the strange shapes of the trees and things?
Yeah, there are different types of visitors. There are the people that believe and they come there to interact with what they believe in, and there are people that are more skeptical. They are just curious to see if this is real or not. I don't know. But everybody, when at the end of the whole thing, everybody is the conclusion is okay. This is not a normal forest. So. Hmm.
It's such an interesting forest. For those listening, if you want to visit this forest, you can absolutely take a private tour with Alex. Right, Alex?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we have Hoia Baciu tours. Our website hoiabaciutours.com, or if you search on Google Maps and you look for the round clearing and you click on it, we have Google asked us if if we own that. We don't own it, but we have our link there as well.
Is this the forest itself? Is it made up of anything geological that could account for some of the feelings of paranormal going on there? Like, is it on quartz? Is it?
I'm no, it's the land. It's clay mostly. It's slippery. When it rains, it's very muddy. I've been there with a team of geophysicists, and they scan the in the ground, like they made sending some signal with a tool, and depending on how the signal was reflected, it will appear a graphic. So they wanted to see if there is something in the ground, in the round clearing, in the clearing, that does not allow the trees to grow. So their conclusion was that it's similar with all the other hills around. The problem was that in the clearing, the device didn't work entirely, completely. Like they did this measurement in the ground up to down to I think 12 kilometers normally, and in the round clearing it only went to like 3 kilometers in the ground. The signal when they were sending it. So I don't know. The problem is they couldn't tell if there is some or what is there. They just because the device was not working. And yes, this is another interesting thing. Sometimes the electronic devices are not working well. Actually, on that night, my phone screen just stopped working until I had to hard
Yes.
reset it.
That same night, James Anito was with us. He's a demonologist out of Rhode Island in the States, and he wanted to do a live feed from the clearing. And his connection worked all the way through because he was filming going all the way through on our hike up into the forest. And as we were going through the forest itself, it's really dense. You would think that the connection would have been lost there. But instead, it was as soon as he hit that threshold into that clearing is when the connection was lost. And
it happens a lot. Yeah, for some reason on that spot there is no good connection, and everywhere else is. So yeah, unfortunately, I don't know what. But another thing about the forest seems like they discovered like fireplaces that were dating many years ago. I'm not really sure, but 15 or 20,000 years, something like that.
I think I might have heard or read something about that just recently because I was curious. And it's like they found an old settlement.
Yeah, exactly. A very old settlement there. So people used to live there, like, let's say at least 10,000 years ago, because I'm not mistaken, it was more. There were people there.
Like almost Vikings or something like that. Something along
Yeah,
those
it was
lines.
beyond Vikings, older than the Vikings, I think. But
Do you think they may have had any influence on what's happening now in this area?
could be. I'm not sure. They well, where they found these fireplaces, it's in the north of the forest, and the round clearing is more to the southwest to the forest. But probably they were all over the area, so could be.
What's
I don't have any proof of that.
What's interesting too is that this forest it's a lot smaller than what you would imagine it to be. It's not very big, right?
Yeah, it's not very big.
And it's
But it's easy to get lost for some reason. Yeah, this is another interesting experience of mine. When I started doing tours there at night, I was very confident about my orientation skills. But 2 times during the tours that I'm doing for many years, I got like, I don't know, a dizziness or something that actually I lost my way. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, okay, this is impossible. But it happened. Like, I don't know how.
What'd you do?
I got my compass. I have a compass. I don't use it, but I have it. And usually I rely on my inner sense of direction. But in those times, yeah, when I was like completely confused, I got my compass, and I go south. That would be the exit point. Like if I go south, it's okay.
So when we went in there, did we go from the south side? I'm assuming we
Yes,
did.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. Well, Alex, do you have anything else that you would like to add to our conversation? No.
I don't know. I don't know.
You don't know? Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me about Hoia Forest. And how do guests find you again if they want to take a tour with you?
Hoia Baciu tours.com. Like Hoia Baciu is the name of the forest.
All right. Thank you so much, Alex.
Thank you as well.
Small Town Tales Podcast will be right back.
Hello, my name is Vlad the Impaler. I am one of the most ruthless and controversial medieval rulers, and you're listening to Small Town Tales Podcast. Now for real, my name really is Vlad, and most probably a descendant of my infamous ancestor, but I am an official tour guide here in Romania. Ever since childhood, I loved exploring new places and going off the beaten path. I like showing my friends my secret finds so we could enjoy them together. And this is why I started as an independent tour guide in Bucharest initially. After meeting many people with Romanian roots, wanted to visit their ancestral country, or were just fascinated with this intriguing culture we have here, I figured that more would like to explore this hidden gem of Europe, Romania. Soon I opened a niche tour agency called Romanian Thrills, always aiming for authentic experiences, remarkable accommodations, engaging with locals all the time to keep their heritage alive, and diving into that neo-traditional, reinterpreted food scene and cuisine. I believe that travel is one of the best forms of education and want to inspire everyone to have a meaningful and memorable trip. So keep the travel spirit alive, and see you soon on the podcast.
Small Town Tales Podcast continues.
Welcome back to this episode of Small Town Tales Podcast. My next guest is a husband and wife team that specializes in paranormal evidence. Francis and Doug of Beyond the Veil Investigations have a long history of researching the paranormal. This couple is interesting because Francis has some abilities and have had experiences her whole life, but it wasn't until they had a child together while living in a haunted house that her abilities came to a head. Since then, they have dedicated themselves to learning as much as they can about the paranormal, including investigating haunted locations and collecting as much evidence of the paranormal that they can. We will talk more about this, but first, let's welcome Francis and Doug to the show. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you for having us.
So let's get started with you guys. Tell me about yourselves.
We're originally from Arizona,
Tucson,
Arizona. We moved up to Cleveland about 10 years ago when our daughter was 2 weeks old. And it's kind of been here since, that's kind of where everything hit a point for us once we moved up here into the house, and kind of started us on our journey that we've been on all these years. So
is this Cleveland, Ohio?
Yeah.
Yeah, we live just outside of Cleveland. Yep.
That's a long move from Arizona.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was a long drive.
A couple thousand miles.
Yeah.
Why did you choose Ohio?
Oh, Francis had a friend up here, been a real close friend, been trying to get her to move up there for years, and we had the newborn baby and just decided it was time for a change. Cashed in our retirement and moved up here.
Yeah.
And haven't left.
Yep.
So, how long have you guys been investigating the paranormal, and what led you into the paranormal?
Well, we started full-on investigating probably about 5.5 years ago. I have had experiences my whole childhood, teenage years. It was more something I kind of ignored because I didn't quite understand it. I saw things, I hear voices talking to me all the time, and it wasn't until we moved to Ohio and my friend found the house for us. We'd never seen it. They found it for us. We actually wired money to the people to rent it out. And so when we first moved up here, everything was okay at first. It was probably about 2 months in, just everything. It started off little things like we'd hear voices calling out, or we'd see dark shadows moving across the floor. We'd be like, "Did you see that?" And we're just like, we would try to explain it away, didn't, pay too much attention to it, but it just intensified. It started to a point where it was setting off all the baby toys in the house. It would start setting off all the detectors in the house. It would mimic our son's voice. We would, one time we were alone upstairs with the baby, and we could hear my son calling us from downstairs. We could hear Mom, and I'm like, "What?" We heard it call him again. I'm like, "What?" So I walked to the stairs. I'm like, "Clayton, what do you want?" And when we remembered, he was at school. He wasn't even there. So it was little things like that that started happening, and then it just came to the point where it didn't mess with our son as much. It was more me and the baby. Doug had a few experiences, and then it's just when the worst of the worst happened, when the baby was actually missing from our bed one night, that kind of everything turned like completely around for us.
So this entity actually sounded like your son at some point?
It mimicked his voice, 100%.
It was clear. I thought because my son was 13 at the time, so it was like we just heard him calling up to me, and it wasn't until I went to the stairs and to talk to him, and I was like, "Wait, he's not even here. He's at school." And I was like, "Doug, Clayton's not here. He's at school."
It sounded so much like him that I literally thought he was home from school for some reason.
It was weird. It was really freaky.
Unlike anything we've ever heard, ever.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard anything like that either. What do you think was going on with that?
Well, back then we were still trying to figure it out, and it was just we didn't know. We couldn't explain what was happening, and then when it started escalating around the baby and stuff, that's where we just started getting really, really scared. That's where the moment where it's hard for me to talk about, but it started with my daughter was probably about 2.5 months, 3 months old at the time, and I used to nurse her at night. So I kept waking up and finding her hanging off the bed, and I couldn't understand, like dangling with her feet. And I would tell him
and this wasn't when she was crawling.
No, she was.
It wasn't when she was even turning over. So the fact that she was moved on her own was. And I would tell him, "How is she dangling down there? I don't understand." I'd pull her back up, and it happened probably about 3 or 4 times in a row. Well, one night I woke up and she's gone, and I just flew out of the bed screaming because I was like freaked out. I'm like, I couldn't find her, and he jumps out of bed. Well, there was this wall around the corner where we found her by this crawl space, and there was a story to the crawl space when we first moved in there. It was sealed because this house had crawl spaces. We'd never seen crawl spaces before from Arizona, so we're curious, opening all the crawl spaces, and this one we couldn't open. It was sealed. I was like, well, maybe they sealed it for some reason. We just let it go. Well, a week or so later, we come upstairs and it was opened, and I had a standing jewelry box, and the jewelry box was moved out, and the door was open. And we were like, "Oh my God!" I was like, "Just shut it, nail it shut." He nailed it shut, and it was the incident with the baby. A couple weeks later, I was just so hysterical because I couldn't understand it. I didn't understand what was happening. I remember I didn't sleep for weeks. I just slept. I sat up on the bed every night, her next to me. I was so scared to sleep. I couldn't understand what had happened. And it got worse. It seemed like at night when I was upstairs with her, it was like it would do stuff downstairs. Like it wanted me to go downstairs constantly. It was setting things off. It was making voices come out of her toys downstairs. It was horrifying, and I can't even describe it. It was just, there was an incident one time I was downstairs, and we had a dog. So one time I got hit in the back of my head, and I assumed it was my dog, and I jumped up and turned around, and he's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I thought Kasha was behind me because something just hit me in the back of my head." And it was just incidents like that. It just definitely surrounded me and the baby. It was almost like it didn't want me around the baby or something. It was just, I can't even describe the feeling of what was happening. It was just terrible.
It's one thing to have a haunting in a home, but it's quite another to have the entity interfering with a baby in the house.
It was it was.
And even our stories, it doesn't even capture how intense it was.
Once she started walking,
there was no getting used to it. It was very, very difficult to deal with. It was extremely difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Did this affect her personality at all?
Well, now as she's gotten older, she is not scared of the paranormal. Like our son, we've gotten him to do a couple things with us, but our daughter is fearless when it comes to it. I don't want to say fearless because it's still scary like it is to any of us, but she definitely approaches things with a more open mind.
Because she's had her own experiences.
Because of her experiences she's had since she was a newborn.
So I'm assuming she's got abilities as well, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So you guys, it's actually never been solved, this case, right? This entity is still in your home.
Yeah, well, we don't live there anymore, but what happened was this house, we had come to learn, through conversations with the neighbors, that it had been previously abandoned. And no one could tell us for how many years it had been abandoned. So who knows what happened in that place. We did find interesting drawings on the walls in the basement. I'm not going to pretend that I know what they were. They were definitely symbols. Back then I didn't think to take pictures of it and research it.
We just painted over them, not paying attention to them.
But I think that when it was abandoned, people had entered it, and who knows what happened with those symbols in that basement. I definitely think it is all tied together.
So what happened? Did you guys need to call in for help? Like, how did you calm the situation to where you could actually live there with the baby?
Well, what we did was I got promoted and we moved.
Well, I went to the manager originally and I was like, hey, have you ever had people complain about this house? And he's like, well, what do you mean? And I was like, because we're having some weird things happen. And I was like, and this was in the early stages when we would hear women's voices calling out, stuff like that. He's like, oh, it's just an old house. They make noises. I'm like, no, that's not what's happening here. And he just kind of brushed us off. And
well, because of course he hadn't had any complaints.
Yeah, because it had been abandoned. He just didn't tell us that.
For some reason, he did not want to divulge to us that it was previously abandoned, that we were the first tenants to rent from him since his ownership of the property.
Yeah. So the main reason why we had left is because I had a few incidents where I woke up and I couldn't breathe. And I would wake up coughing really hard. And at first we're like, oh, it must be like a leak in the room. There must be. So I had him open up there was another one by this huge walk-in closet. And I asked him to open it up, make sure there's no leaks going on in there. Cause that's just what I assumed at first. But then I noticed there was a couple of times I woke up and I wasn't breathing. And I would tell him, I'm like, it's really, really scary. I'm just waking up and I can't breathe. I'm like gasping for air. And after this one time when it's just like I was panicking and I was just so scared, I looked at him. I said, I don't think I'm supposed to be in this house anymore. I was like, I'm starting to get really scared. That was still just with the things happening, because not long before that, our daughter had started walking and she was probably about 15 months old. We were up in the room. Tim and I are just talking and I went to stand up to go to the closet. And I went to walk and she grabbed my leg and started screaming. And she was pointing to the closet going, scared, scared, scared. And I was like, it's okay. It's okay. And she was screaming hysterically. She did not want me to go. And she kept pointing over there. And we're like, what is it? What is it? Because we couldn't see anything, of course, and she was just, as I got closer just to show her nothing was over there, she was just screaming at me, and it was little things like that. It was just everything just started escalating. And then when that happened, when I was sleeping, I told him, I was like, you have to trust me. We just need to move. And so we were lucky he got promoted and we left before the lease was up. We just paid 2 rents so we could just get out of there because that was really scary. It was just really scary. That's just all I can say.
Did anything from that house follow you aside from always reliving those experiences, right? You'll never forget those experiences. But has that entity followed you in any way, or the child?
We do still have experiences. I think we have had things here, but I think that because we were followed home from investigations.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, when we moved, and back then we weren't into the paranormal, we weren't investigators, we weren't as knowledgeable as we are now. We didn't do things to ensure that it did not follow us or try our hardest to make sure it didn't follow us. I think it was just attached to the house and it stayed when we left. think it didn't have to do with us. It had to do with the house.
So do you think in the basement where you saw the symbols and everything, do you think there was some kind of a occult activity going on or anything?
And as I said, I don't want to presume that to know what they were or to assume what was going on with those, because I don't know what the symbols were. And I wish I had taken pictures of them, but I do think that something like that would be a possibility, given what happened to us.
So what do you believe? Why was it attached to the child so much? Do you think that that children have a specific energy about them?
Well, I definitely think they definitely are way more vulnerable. I think that because have had experiences my whole life, I think my daughter's even more sensitive to it. She has described things in this house. Her and my son have been home one time a few years back. We're at a concert, and he's older. He's 23. He's one that takes care of her when we investigate. And one night we're at a concert. He's just messaging me like crazy, and he's freaking out that they were on the couch watching a movie, and he's like, full on, I heard somebody run up these stairs. He's like, the dog took off after it. He's like, I don't know what to do. And he's like, you could just hear the footsteps stomping up the stairs. And he's like, I don't know what to do. I was like, you gotta stay calm because you're gonna scare her, scare your sister. I was like, you gotta go up there and show there's nothing up there. And he's like, I don't want to. And I was like, you gotta do it, And well, so we come home that night, and he's really freaked. My son says stay, and this was like 5 or 6 years ago. He won't talk about it. And my daughter brings it up. He's like, please don't talk about it, Well, when that happened, my daughter came up to me about a couple weeks later, and she's like, why did brother lie to me? And I was like, well, what do you mean? She's like, because I saw her. I'm like, I still didn't know what she was talking about. I was like, saw who? And she's like, I saw the woman running up the stairs. And she described this woman head to toe, what she looked like, what she was wearing. And she said she had seen the woman running up the stairs. And I was like, well, did she look at you? And she said she looked at her sideways as she was running. And my daughter just began to cry. And she's like, she didn't look like a ghost. She's like, she looked real like we do. She's like, she looked like she had skin. And it is because at times she was like 5 years old. So that's how she described it. She's like, she looked like us with skin. And so it scared her how realistic this woman looked at her. And I was just trying not to freak out and just listen to what she's saying, but that's when I think it really, I was just like, wow, she can really, is way more aware of this than I even thought she ever was as a little girl. And she would tell me things, she tells us all the time she can hear the voices, she can hear, for some reason there's always been a strong energy around our daughter.
Are they grown now, or are they still kids?
My daughter's only 10, so
okay. They're still fairly young.
Yeah,
very young. They're still babies.
Yeah. Our son's in his 20s, but yeah, daughter's she's only 10.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess it's good that they have you guys to be, because I know when I was a kid, I grew up and I saw ghosts and things, and for me, it wasn't so much a scary experience, but I didn't have anyone to kind of teach me anything, whereas I feel like if there's a parent in the home that understands what's going on and can kind of teach them about the paranormal,
yep,
it kind of helps that way.
And I always let her know, it's one thing I tell her is I always believe her, and she can always come to me because I understand. She tells me I don't like it, I don't like being able to feel it and see it. And I tell her I understand. I was like, but it's a very special gift what you have. I tell her, come to me and talk to me. I'm here. I'm going to help you. I go, don't be afraid, And I let her know I always believe her, because that's the one thing that she'll come in. She's like, you believe me, right? And I'm like, yes, I do. I 100% believe you because I've seen it. So
let's see. So what are some of the things that you guys do to protect yourselves from the paranormal? Now that you got 2 young kids in the home, who are both obviously very sensitive. You yourself are sensitive. You go out and you investigate. So what are some of the things you do to protect yourselves and your family from entities following you and from carrying stuff from investigations and things of that nature?
Well, one thing we've incorporated is before and after we investigate, we sage our house. That's one thing that we have learned over the years. We started doing it, and then we learned some things and adjusted how we do it, which has been very helpful. And then also, when we're leaving an investigation, we
have our own special clothing that we use because we didn't do that in the beginning, and we think definitely after investigating a prison, something followed us home one night, and we learned very quickly to make sure we have this closing before we leave every location, before we even get in our car, to make sure that that never happens again. So it's only needs to happen once to experience something like that.
So I'm going to change gears just a little bit. And I want to talk about the evidence that you guys collect. You're very solid on the evidence, right? It seems like everything you post, you're trying to put out the best evidence possible.
Exactly.
So what is your goals with this? And what are some of the best evidence captures that you guys got?
Well, the thing about us when it comes to capturing evidence is we like to, although we do enjoy watching other people's videos with the tools and all these instruments that people use. I enjoy watching it. I think it's fun. But when it comes to our own investigating, we have a spirit box and we have digital recorders and we videotape our investigations using infrared night vision. And we recently, well, it's not recently anymore, we acquired a REM pod as well. But that's what we use. We don't really have super fancy gadgets and tech. So I think that definitely, I don't even know what I'm trying to say. I think that definitely it keeps us focused. You know, we have a certain amount of few things that we use, and we only have to focus on those things. But as far as evidence, my favorite evidence, I just EVPs are my all-time favorite. I absolutely love capturing EVPs.
It is so hard to refer to EVPs, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
A voice there that shouldn't be there. It's really hard to explain that away, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
I have people that tell me, ghost hunting's fake. It's like, well, I know I have this tool. I hold it out, I ask a question, and it answers me. You can't fake that.
That said, I was just reading a book by Brian Kano, and he was talking about the old days of ghost hunting when people just used themselves, their own bodies, and maybe a little recorder to capture evidence. I feel like a lot of times we go into these investigations with all of this gear and we're too busy fumbling on computers and trying to get cameras to work and wire this up. And I feel like we miss a lot in these investigations.
We have our one handheld camera that we take turns using. Each of us has a digital recorder, and then we'll turn on the spirit box too, because I do appreciate the radio frequencies being manipulated. I do really appreciate that.
And we always investigate in pure darkness. We don't use any lighting because we want to try to really focus on our senses. So we we walk into a lot of walls or trip over a lot of things, but we love investigating pure darkness, just so it's nothing but our senses that we can. Because that's what we do on location. We always walk around first. We don't bring anything around. We'll just walk around ourselves and kind of in each room and talk to them, because we believe in interact with them as if they were alive and 100% respectful. We thank them for allowing us to come in, and we'll interact before we even start. And then we'll go back and start investigating after that, because we just want to be respectful entering into their place. That's their space, So I don't want to just walk in and start investigating right away. Just make sure that they know that we are grateful for that opportunity to come in there.
Do you guys have like a big database of EVPs that you've collected over the years?
Yeah, we have a lot.
We record everything. Not only do we do sessions, but on our camcorder that we walk around with, there's a recorder on that also recording at all times. So not only do we have edited videos that we've produced and put out there for people to see, we have thousands of EVPs that have just never been released.
I have a question about that later with all the evidence, but I'll ask that in a little bit. Does different locations matter when collecting evidence? Like, do you normally get more evidence from, say, a jail over a church, or vice versa? Does it matter?
I don't want to say more. I think you definitely get different evidence. I want to give an example. The Gill House is it's in Galion, Ohio. It is I don't think anyone ever even died on the property.
Just next to a cemetery.
It's situated within a couple of cemeteries in the small town there, and there's no reason whatsoever why this place should be as haunted as it is. But we've investigated Trans-Allegheny and Penhurst, and we've captured amazing evidence there. Lucky to have gone there, but it's the little place like that which blows them both out of the water for the amount of evidence we captured. Spirit box voices crystal clear, yelling at us the second we turned it on. So anomalies that are unlike anything we've seen ever. So I don't want to say that the jails and the insane asylums that you get more. It's just different.
It's a different kind of energy to it.
Yeah, definitely.
So after collecting years of evidence, are you convinced that paranormal exists? I already know the answer to this, but I want to get your theories on it.
Because we've experienced it. We've seen firsthand what it does, and we felt it. We've heard it. 100% it exists. 100%.
So what do you do with this knowledge, though? So you know it exists. You have evidence to back it up. What does this do for humanity, you think? Does it make us better as people? Does it... why do we keep doing it? I guess is where I'm trying to ask.
I know it makes us better as people. It makes me look at things from a much more, for lack of a better word, spiritual perspective. I'd like to think that someone out there that previously, did not believe or did not enjoy watching or learning about the paranormal field may see a Beyond the Veil episode and maybe think differently because of it. So that's what it is
help open up people up to it more, to give it a second chance and look at it and say, not these crazy shows or these YouTube channels. They're screaming and yell, stop from it and look and listen. What's really out there? Give it a chance. Go to one of these locations. Go to and yourself and just see what you feel, see what you might hear.
Yeah. And that being said, everyone has their own investigation style. Yeah. If that's the way you investigate, some people may react more intensely than we do. That's fine. Mm-hmm. But I definitely think that if you slow down, take a minute, and really try to understand what you're seeing and what you're experiencing, it can change how you think about things.
Have you guys ever had that paranormal case that really kind of changed your whole outlook on life and paranormal and everything in between, your spiritual values?
Well, for me, it's got to be the one we've already described, the house that we lived in, where it's nonstop, completely intense, unexplainable occurrences. As far as since we've become investigators, I haven't really had any profound experiences in that sense. So for me, it's just got to be the original one that got us into the field. That's really, really changed how I look at all this stuff.
And it made me more driven to just find answers. Found answers to my past, after the house. And once we started investigating, it's actually made me start to look back at my life and why it started with me. Where no one, talking to my mom, no one in my family's ever experienced anything like it. So it's really just I've been working on just back to my earliest memories, trying to figure out just where it started for me. And it's made me even when I always tell them, I want to get out, I want more answers. It just makes me hungry to find more answers to all of it, and it's just
that and the investigating and traveling is just too much fun.
Yeah.
Just too much fun.
Yeah.
We love it.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely love it.
So you guys are, with your story, you're able to really help families that may be experiencing the paranormal, correct?
We've been there. We would definitely provide a support for people who've been through, because it's hard to open up to people. We didn't tell anybody except for our family members for years until we started kind of sharing our story. It was really hard at first. It was hard for me to even get it out without crying all the time, because it was so hard to bring those memories up. And we know what it's like to people when you first tell people and they're just kind of looking at you, or they're like, really? Or it's and it's hard to keep telling it because people don't know unless they've experienced it. You can't even begin to understand what it feels like until you've gone through it.
Has there been a case that you worked on where you were able to help a family with a young kid because of this?
No, we haven't really worked with, a lot of people yet, like, personal stories yet. So their own cases yet. We do a lot of traveling to the big locations
or the little ones.
Yeah. Because we travel alone. It's always just Doug and I. We haven't been with other people and, collab with big teams or anything like that. It's always just been the two of us. So
we've collabed twice, but it was just with a friend.
Friends, yeah.
And it was for fun. It wasn't anything serious.
No, yeah.
So a lot of the paranormal field is working out of their own silos, it seems like. And there's not a lot of sharing between them. I feel like a lot of that comes from one group is afraid of somebody else taking their evidence and getting fame from it, whatever.
Too much people competing with each other out there. And so remembering why we're all out there doing this.
Should all be a big team.
Yeah.
Yeah. So everybody has like these collections of evidence, right? In different experimental fields or different cases. In the medical field, there is a congressional library where physicians and everybody who publishes papers and journals, they all end up in this congressional library. And medical students and doctors, anyone that's working on a PhD in the medical field has access to this. And the point is, you're supposed to be able to research, like, say, I don't know, throat cancer. I've had throat cancer, so I just put that one out there. But every evidence that's ever been researched is in that library and can be pulled pertaining to that. What do you feel if the paranormal had a database like that, to be able to store all the evidence in different situations, do you think that would change the field?
I think it definitely would change the field. Especially if it were put out there where everyone A was allowed to post no matter what, and B, if no matter what anyone was allowed to listen. I do enjoy that. I like that idea. It's especially if you had something new and something groundbreaking that you can add to it. How many EVPs do we need to listen to of someone saying "get out"?
That's like the next one EVP, right?
Yeah. I mean, us alone, we probably have 300 EVPs being told "get out." Mm-hmm. But if people had pertinent things that they wanted to share, I mean, I would put it in there. If I had something pertinent that could change, that could help change, yes, for sure.
I don't know why I was thinking about that. I guess it's because you guys collect evidence, and that's what you build your group on, right? So, what are your personal theories on the paranormal? Like, what do you think is happening? Do you think it's a spiritual battle? Do you think
there's great question? It's the great question, and no one knows. And no one knows what the real answer is, and that's why we're all out there trying to find those answers. The questions, we've put all those questions out there, and everybody's getting all these different answers. And in the end, none of us are really going to know until, we're on that side, really.
Yeah. Every case, every minute, every person is different. Mm-hmm. Just because there's a ghost in my house right now, they're going to interact with me differently than they're going to interact with Frances. I'm going to hear it differently than she hears it. I think it's just a matter of interpretation and the way you yourself communicate back as well.
Yeah.
So tell me about some of the locations that you've been to. I know you mentioned a couple of them already. Can you talk about some of them that you've been in, and maybe some of the more profound places aside from the house that started this whole thing?
Definitely one of our favorites is Penhurst State School. That was incredible. We were actually able to take our daughter and our son there. They got to tour it as well, and then we investigated overnight. Trans-Allegheny was incredible. Ashmore Estates in Illinois, Randolph County in Indiana.
Yeah, we've been to some really good ones.
Yeah.
I think Penhurst is definitely up there.
That's
One of the most intense experiences we had was also in the basement at Bobby Mackey's Music World
in Bobby Mackey's.
in Wilder, Kentucky. In the basement, we had I think it was a light bulb or some type of light or something that was made of glass was thrown at us in the basement.
Yeah,
that shared behind us. Yeah,
it was really, because I was filming him and he was in the middle talking, and right then you just heard it smash right behind me. And again, because we investigate in complete darkness, it's just pure dark behind me. So it's intimidating as it is. Just all I see is Doug through the screen, and it's black everywhere. And to hear something like that behind you, it caught me so off guard. All I could do was run towards Doug because I didn't know what was happening. But it was definitely a scary moment.
Did you guys investigate that place by yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, we did.
Oh wow.
Oh yeah,
They have someone on site, but they sit in the car in the parking lot.
They watch the location.
Yeah, they're very protective over their location, which I get. It's one of the more famous ones.
Yeah.
So there is someone on site, but not in the building. Yeah. They leave you alone in the building.
What are some of the things that happen? I'm just so interested about, I lived in Nashville for 15 years and never got up to see Bobby Mackey's. I always wanted to, never did.
Yeah, Bobby Mackey's was very intense.
Yeah.
Unlike anything we've ever investigated. But like I said, the basement was where we had our most profound experience. And then upstairs in the old caretaker's room, I think it's Carl, right? Yeah. I got some pretty intense spirit box voices. It's been so long now, it's hard for me to remember exactly what was said to us, but I do remember that we got some direct responses up there in his room as well. Yeah.
Now, I don't remember the story exactly. Did he pass away?
Yes. I don't think he passed away on site, but I know that he was the caretaker there and a personal friend of Bobby Mackey's for years, and he did pass away prior to us investigating.
So what is going on at Bobby Mackey's that makes it so incredibly haunted like this?
It's hard to say. They say the legend is in the basement there's a portal to hell. That's what they say. There's a well that was dug up. There wasn't a body thrown in there or something. They found the head of a woman who was murdered. And I guess it was they say that once he dug up that well and dug up those bones, that a portal to hell was open, is what they say. We didn't capture any evidence to confirm or support that, but it's definitely very dark location in the basement down there.
I've seen a lot of videos of that place where people are being pushed. I think one person got shoved down the steps, I believe, at this location. One of the caretakers on one of the shows was possessed at some point, or was believed to be possessed.
I think that was Carl. Wasn't that Carl?
I think it was.
During one of his interviews, yeah.
That's an interesting place.
Yeah.
So are there any other locations?
We've done a lot of smaller ones out here in Ohio. Yeah. Prospect Place Mansion, for me, is out here in Ohio. We've done it 9-10 times, and that will always be one of my favorite locations. It's the only location ever I've had to leave. And I'm still trying to get him to take me back there, because I know it's like I have this weird obsession with the location. And we would go there. We loved it. We'd go there all the time. And then we went there one day, and I don't know what happened, but it was a different place. Somebody had been there before us and ticked something off in there. But I just remember going in and being in the middle of an investigation, and I told him something just all of a sudden was hovering over me, and it did not want me in there. And I remember he was just like, "What's wrong with you?" I was like, "I don't know. There's something hovering over me, and it does not want me in here." And whatever it was followed me from room to room. And I was trying to film him, and I was in a corner, and I couldn't get away from what it was. And I was just scared. I told him, I was like, "I got to leave. We cannot stay here anymore." And that's the only time that's ever happened. And I've been back twice since, and every time it just pushes us out. And so it keeps driving. I'm going crazy because I want to go back again. He's like, "You got to just take a break from it," But it's like by far one of my favorite locations, even compared to like Penhurst. It's like that place I cannot stop thinking about, and I just always want to go back there. And I think
somehow draws you in, right?
What's that?
There's some places that just call you to.
Yeah.
Virginia City is one of those places for me.
Oh man, I'd love to go there someday.
Have you guys been there?
No. I want to go so bad.
The Goldfield Hotel and all those other. It's like a small mining town, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Goldfield Hotel, there's literally nothing around it but one little bar that will stay open just to cater to the people who are investigating. It's a really interesting area.
I'd love to do that someday. That's so cool.
Did you guys do any investigating in, well, I know you said that you didn't get into paranormal until you lived in Ohio, but did you get back to Arizona to do any ghost hunting?
No, we haven't been back
back there. We've interacted with quite a few teams out there, and we have learned since we lived up here that there's quite a few hot spots down there where people like to investigate. So we know when we go back, there's a few places we want to check out.
Got it. So what are some of the upcoming projects that you are working on? I know you're part of Paraflix. Mm-hmm. Are you going to continue to do that for 2023? Do you have some Paracons coming up? What's going on with you guys?
We have, this past year, we probably investigated about 13 different locations. We were really, really busy. And so that's why the last month or two, we kind of took a step back to spend a lot of time with our daughter, kind of take a breath. And we have a tremendous amount of videos getting ready to come out from Ashmore. We did Monroe House. We did Hinsdale House.
Yeah, Hinsdale House.
You did Hinsdale House.
Yeah, we did Brunel. Oh yeah, we did a bunch of locations. So now we're getting ready to do Ashmore Stays. We finished editing it. We're going to release that one, and then we have about 10 more to release after that. And then this coming year, it's just going to be finding more new locations and get out there and investigate.
I'm really excited to see what you guys have coming out.
Yeah,
you planning on any Paracons?
We haven't been to any Paracons yet. Just been focusing on the investigating. We're just. We see a lot of them going on, but we're like, nope, we're going to send an investigation up, and that's just been like, we want to get out into a location. And we did a jail recently.
Yeah, people don't know the Monroe House, like 3 doors down, literally down the street, there's a haunted jail.
We did both of them 2 weekends in a row. We're just like, we got to do both of them.
Yeah.
Well, what is the Monroe House for those who don't know what that is?
Go ahead.
We had actually learned about it because we saw Nick Groff and Katrina Wieldman. They had investigated it a few years back. And while they were investigating there, Nick had crawled into this crawl space and they actually found human bones. There was a lot of history to this house. This guy had bought it he was going to fix it up and sell it. Well, I guess after he bought the house, he started experiencing a bunch of activity. So he didn't sell the house because he's been trying to find out to this day what is going on. They've had reports of the house shaking, voices, people seeing people walking in the house. So we had heard stories about this place. So we're like, yep, we got to go. So we finally got to it just a few months back. And it was a great location. I mean, it wasn't as intense as some of the things we heard about it, but we loved it. We loved it to go back again.
Yeah, we're going to go back and every experience will be different.
Oh yeah. It's just fun some of these times you hear about these locations, you got to go try it for yourself, And
yeah, that's so true. There's so many places that I need to go to as well. What's on your bucket list? Just out of curiosity.
And extreme lifetime bucket list for me, I would love to go and investigate the Ardennes Forest in Belgium, where the Battle of the Bulge happened in World War II, and go and get some EVPs of American soldiers in some of those foxholes. That's what I would love to do.
That would be really cool. So where do the listeners find you guys? If they need help, how do they get in connection with you guys?
Oh, we're on Facebook. Our email that we check is also on our Facebook. Instagram. We're on Twitter a lot. You can even get in touch with us on TikTok. We're out there. We like we said, we don't have any website per se, but we're on all the social media. And if you're ever in the mood to watch some cool videos, we're on Paraflix. And I think our YouTube channel. We haven't posted on YouTube in a long time, but our videos are still out there on YouTube.
I'll definitely share those on my website. You guys, thank you for being on the show. Is there anything else you want to add before we go?
I just want to say thank you for having us.
Yeah,
We
we had a great time.
really enjoy these podcasts, and we really, really appreciate you having us on your show.
Thank you guys so much for being a part of this.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Small Town Tales Podcast. While you wait for the next episode, follow the show on Facebook under Small Town Tales Podcast. Learn more about C.L. Thomas at her website, clthomas.org.